everybody. So today we are going to talk about function notation again, and we are going to talk about our last and final way to represent a function, which is there is a fifth way to represent a function, and that is called the equation. And we're also going to note that function notation, again, is the function name with the input on the inside of the parentheses, and you're equal to your output. All right, so let's take a look at the following examples. Evaluate the following functions for the given values. So notice we have k of x, that's one of our function names, t of x, and p of x. All right, so k of -1 means we are going to select k of x, which is -7x plus 1 as our function. And inside for our input, we are putting in -1 for x. So it's going to look a little bit something like this, where we'll take -7. In place of x, we're going to substitute in the value they want us to evaluate, which is -1. And then do your order of operations. So -7 times -1 is a +7 plus 1, which ends up giving us a +8 as our output of k of -1. All right, now let's look at t of -2. T is this following function. So we are going to use t of -2. So -2 is our input into this function. So wherever we see x, we're replacing it. So x, we are replacing, So once you determine which function you're using, you are going to put the input into that function. So we're going to put -2 inside of this function for both x's. All right, now -2 cubed is like thinking -2 times -2 times -2, which ends up giving us a -8. And -4 times -2 is a +8, which means 0 is our output of t of -2. All right, next two examples. So for the letter C, we're going to use the function of p. So we are using this function for letter C, and we are going to input 1 as our x. So remember to do your order of operations. The power must come first. So 1 squared, or 1 times 1, is literally 1. 5 times 1 is 5. Minus 3. So 1 plus 5 is 6, minus 3. So our final answer is 3 as our output of p of 1. All right, now back to our final piece here. So k of what input would equal an output of -48? So the key here is to use the correct function. So we are in fact going to use k as our input function. But k, we already know the output. So the output is -48. And we're trying to figure out what is our input. So what is x? So we're going to solve that equation for x by subtracting 1 from both sides. Once we subtract 1 from both sides, we get -49 equals 7x, -7x, and we have to divide by -7 to get x completely alone. So a negative divided by a negative becomes a positive, and 49 divided by 7 is 7. So k of 7 as our input would give us -49, or 48, I'm sorry. All right, last group here of some examples. So f of +4, first and foremost, we need to determine which function we're using. So we are going to use the function of f, and inside that function, we are going to put the input of 4. So as we input 4 in place of x in our function, What is 2 times 4? That's 8. And 8 minus 3 is going to land us at 5 as our output of f of 4. All right, let's move on to h is our new function for our next piece. So we are going to use this function to help us evaluate this function at negative 3. So in place of x, we are inputting negative 3. All right, so once we input negative 3 in place of both of our x's, we are now going to evaluate using order of operations. So we're going to use our power, which means negative 3 squared is like saying negative 3 times negative 3, which is a positive 9. Negative 3 times negative 3 again is positive 9. And then we're going to add 5 at the end. So 9 plus 9 is 18. And 18 plus 5, 23. So 23 is our final output of h of negative 3. And last but not least, guys, we have 2 more examples. So g of negative 2. First, we need to make sure that we're using the correct function. So this time we are using the function of g. And in place of x, we are inputting negative 2. So again, we will start with the power. So negative 2 cubed is negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, which ends up giving us negative 8. And then we're subtracting 2 from that. So I end up getting negative 10 as our output of g of negative 2. All right, last but not least, we have our function of f. We don't know the input, but we do know the output. So the easiest way to go about going about this question is using the function of f of x, but in place of f of x, or the output, we are going to put 31. So then we can actually solve for x, our input of that function. So to solve for x, the first thing we would do would be to add 3 to both sides. To undo the 2 in front of x, we would have to divide by 2. Or cut 34 literally in half. And we get our answer of 17. So our input that made this happen was 17. And that would give us an output of 31. All right, guys, it's time to practice. And we are going to do this in teams today. Here we go.